Many species have gone extinct across the globe. De-extinction is a science of bringing back some of them. But how does it work? And can or should we bring back every lost species? Hi, I'm Julian and this is EcolClips. Today I'm visiting Professor Mike Archer from the University of New South Wales in Australia. Mike has spent his life exploring these questions. He shares his insights on the science, ethical considerations and the possibilities of de-extinction. Mike, tell us, why do species go extinct?
Wow, for lots and lots of reasons. I guess the basic reason they go extinct is there's been a gap between their abilities to survive and some change in the environment. Something has altered the conditions that they were comfortable with before, and suddenly they're not. Some species can adapt when those kind of changes occur, but sometimes they have to adapt so fast that the demands placed on the natural evolutionary processes are too great. And if they can't match the need, they're gone.
So recently, very big in the news, there was a concept of de-extinction.
Yeah.
Could you explain to us how it works? And also, could we bring back basically any species, even dinosaurs?
Look, I love this whole area. Yes, I think here's the joke about the dinosaur thing. We don't have to bring them back because birds are dinosaurs. Dinosaurs' genome it's alive and well and it's in the world today, and you feed it crackers and nuts. We eat Kentucky Fried Dinosaur. They are dinosaurs, so we don't have to bring those back. But there are plenty of other animals that went extinct, particularly because of things that we did as humans. That many of us who are in this area and interested in this possibility are focused on individual animals we think would be really important to bring back. They may be extinct now. Big question is, do they have to stay extinct? Is extinction forever? I don't think so. And all of the groups around the world who are working on various projects, often very different kinds of projects, that try to restart an animal that's extinct or plant. I think this is really important. It's going to happen.
So do you think it's in general ethical to bring back species that perhaps may no longer fit in today's ecosystems, or bringing back species in general?
Oh, such a complex question. Ethics is always a sticky bit with me because it's where people start to imagine problems before they've actually occurred. We're really focused on intended consequences, not the unintended consequences. You've got to pay attention to what might go wrong, and obviously not do something that you're quite sure is going to cause a problem. But in all the kinds of projects, the de-extinction projects I've been involved in, if we can get the animals back, the habitats where they lived and the animals and plants that lived with them are still there. They're waiting for these animals to come back. And I think, if we want to talk about ethics, I think we've got an ethical responsibility to do what we can to stabilize ecosystems by increasing as much biodiversity as we can in those ecosystems. So if we can bring back something that's gone extinct, it's like a stool. If you think about it, if you sit on a stool that's got 4 legs, you remove one leg, you can probably still sit on it. You remove another leg and you're going to be struggling. You move the 3rd leg, good luck. But the more of those legs you bring back onto that stool, the greater the stability of the stool. And ecosystems are like that. So the more species we can get back into ecosystems, even sometimes species that haven't been there recently, been missing for a long time, they may help to bolster the resilience of the ecosystem to deal with the change that the environment keeps inflicting on it.
Yeah, Mike, you're a strong advocate of de-extinction, especially the Tasmanian tiger, if I remember correctly. Why is this important to you?
Oh, I fell in love with that animal. When I did my PhD, one of the things I was focused on was Australia's carnivorous marsupials. And this was the king of beasts, the king of carnivores in Australia. And yet, here's this horrible story that in 1936, the last one dies in a zoo because we've slaughtered thousands of them for ridiculous reasons. So there's a terrible debt humanity owes to this species. We killed it and it should not have been destroyed like that. So if we could bring it back, I've been to the places where thylacines lived. The habitat is still fine for them to be put back in that area again. I've spoken to people who actually knew them in the 1910s, 1920s. They remember them. I got one of these people to actually take me back to where they were catching them when this kid was 10 years old in about 1910, 1910, 1920, he remembered where he caught thylacines. He took me there. And what I wanted to know, as he stared at the hut where he and his father and his brother had hunted thylacines, they were after the furs, they were selling them. It was what they did for a living. But tears welled up in his eyes as he was looking. He was 90 at this time. And he said to me, this area is exactly the way he remembered it when he was a kid. The same southern beech forest behind the hut, the same grasslands out up front. This is classic thylacine habitat. If we could bring it back, we can put it back. And that's the important thing to me. In that case, we're crazy if we don't try to do this.
So coming back to this question, which species we can bring back? Are there any species which would have the biggest impact to be brought back?
I actually think the thylacine would be probably one of the biggest, most important animals we could bring back. It was the king of beasts. The whole ecosystem depended on it. And I even think one of the disasters that has started to unfold since then, as part of the cascade of extinctions that occurs when you take a key animal out, is the terrible things that have happened to the Tasmanian devil. With the thylacine gone, the devil numbers began to expand. When the thylacine was there and healthy, it competed with the devil, and the devil populations were in isolated areas around Tasmania. We exterminated the thylacine. The devil numbers thought, great. They built up their numbers. Then a disease starts in the Tasmanian devil population, the facial tumor syndrome. It's a terrible thing. It's a contagious cancer. So one animal squabbles with another animal, and the cancer goes from one animal to the other, and it spreads. When the thylacine was there, all those devil populations were isolated. So if that disease popped up, it would burn out in that isolated population. Now with the thylacines gone, the devil populations are all together. They can contact each other, and this disease could exterminate the Tasmanian devil. So if we could bring back the thylacine, it would once again compete with the devil. The devil's populations would be isolated again. So if this disease pops up again, it won't exterminate the Tasmanian devil. So there's so many reasons why we should bring this animal back, this king of beasts, to keep the Tasmanian environment healthy into the future.
Mm. And do you think that de-extinction in general can help to solve our current biodiversity crisis with so many species all over the world going extinct?
Look, I think the de-extinction process is a bit like playing a game of golf. If you go out onto a golf course and you've got one club, you're not going to play a particularly good golf game. But if you've got lots of different clubs in your pack and they're all for specialized little purposes, you're going to play a much better game. And I think de-extinction is one of those clubs. When we're thinking about conservation and trying to maintain biodiversity, we need a lot of different strategies, not just one. So I think de-extinction is another tool that conservationists need to solve some particular problems. For other problems, you would use a different technology. But I think it's one of the important things we do need to be doing, along with everything else.
Mike, apart from the Tasmanian tiger, do you have another favorite species you would like to bring back?
You know, I'd love to bring back the one we're working on at the moment. This is the gastric brooding frog. It's an amazing frog that had the whole medical world agog. Here was a frog, not like a normal frog that when it lays its eggs, wishes the eggs well and then hops off. This frog, the females of this frog, as soon as the eggs were fertilized, swallowed them. And the eggs developed in their stomach, in her stomach, and they metamorphosed into they grew into tadpoles, and in the stomach, the tadpoles metamorphosed into frogs, and then she had a projectile vomit and sprays out little baby frogs. Well, you can imagine the medical world was going nuts about this because here's an animal that has changed totally the function of an organ of its body, turned its stomach into a uterus. Well, you know, if this frog knew how to do that, what could we learn from how we could help humans do various things? I'm not suggesting we're going to turn our own stomach into a uterus, but it just says that there are things these animals have evolved to be able to do that we need to understand, and we might benefit from learning how they're doing it. But then it was extinct. So if we could bring it back again, we could start to better understand what was happening with this frog. But equally, of course, we can put that frog back into the environment in the rainforest where it originally occurred, and it will help stabilize those environments as well.
Thanks a lot, Mike.